Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Limited Time Only. I'm your host, Spencer. It's episode 29, and I'm joined by my co-host, Drew Walden.
Hey, everyone.
Drew, dude, Pro Tour week, was it great?
It was pretty awesome.
Yeah, this was my favorite Pro Tour of all time.
Yeah, I mean, the limited format is awesome, and the constructed format looked like it was pretty diverse, which is always nice to see in constructed, and it was a really, really, really great top 8, so.
Yeah. I guess now every person in that top 8 has a title of some kind, and that's pretty cool. So, they're all winners. Let's get right into this. So don't forget that you can check out this podcast every week on constructorcriticism.com, puremtgo.com, and mtgotraders.com. You can get some sweet stuff at mtgotraders.com if you're looking to build your moto collection. Don't forget that you can support this podcast directly by going to patreon.com/ccmtg. The Constructor Criticism family, this is a huge part of it. We welcome Drew with open arms here, and we hope that you guys will too. And check out the other podcasts at constructorcriticism.com. We appreciate all the support we can get. If you want to hear this podcast weekly and stuff like that, patreon.com is a huge way to make that happen. So let's get into our first segment of the show, Drew. Every week on the show, we go through our second and third picks in a draft and kind of talk about where the draft is going. This week, we picked up an Ever After pick 1. So for those who don't know, that's black, and 4. For a sorcery, you return up to 2 creature cards from your graveyard to the battlefield. Each of those creatures is a black zombie in addition to other types, and then you put Ever After back on the bottom of its owner's library. I've played this card in a draft and in sealed, and it's really good. So, yeah. Happy to pick it up here.
Yep, it's basically a 2-for-1, but you don't lose any tempo. You get your 2 best creatures, so yeah, definitely a very powerful card.
So, going into the next pack, we have Convicted Killer. This is 2 and a red for a 2/2 werewolf human, and then it flips into a 4/4. This card's fine. Not taking this anywhere close to here, though.
Yeah, it's just a red curve filler. I'm definitely going to be looking for something else, especially to go with Ever After, maybe, hopefully.
Next we have Storm Rider Spirit. It's 4 and a blue for a 3/3 with flash and flying.
Again, I'm probably hoping to pick something else up.
I still am not impressed with this.
Yeah, I can see that. I mean, it is. Limited sets have gotten to the point where 5 mana for a 3/3 flyer is just not quite par for the course anymore. But I still like this. I still like having the option able to leave my mana up with a blue deck. So
sure. Next we have Reduced Ashes. This is 4 and a red for a sorcery. It deals 5 damage to target creature. If that creature would die, exile it instead.
A little bit better. This is one of the lower tier removal spells in the set. It is a 5 mana sorcery.
I heard some pros saying that they don't want to play 4 and 5 mana removal in this format. I heard others say that it was totally fine. So we'll obviously get into that during the podcast, but I'm moving this to the front of the pack over the other 2 cards so far.
Currently, yeah.
Confront the Unknown is 1 green for an instant. You investigate, and then target creature gets +1/+1 for each clue. I've heard very different stories about this card. What do you think about it, Drew?
Which is funny because I think that's kind of where everyone was when the set first came out. Some people were thinking this would be one of the best commons. Some people were thinking this is just mediocre chaff filler. I think it's great in the right kind of deck.
I think it's great in one deck.
Like the blue-green
clue
deck. Yeah, I mean, if this is like a giant growth or better, it's very powerful, obviously. And sometimes you can even, just blaze someone with it, right? Like, if you can get, 5 clues out, which does happen occasionally in that deck. But, obviously, in, a non-clue deck, it's maybe just, hopefully, a combat trick Now, interestingly enough, though, I saw people taking combat tricks quite high sometimes. So
Yeah,
again, it probably depends on
I
your
heard a lot of
match.
pros say they really like aim high, actually.
Yeah, and Rush of Adrenaline was another card that
Oh
was
yeah, somebody talked about that to me the other day, that people were taking Rush of Adrenaline pretty high, and I found that interesting.
yeah. So
But pros, there were pros that talked about aim high because they liked its interaction with werewolves, and I was appreciative of that. But I think that Confront the Unknown is good, but I don't think I would take it this early.
no, probably not.
The next card is Press for Answers. It's 1 blue and 1 for a sorcery. Tap target creature doesn't untap during its controller's next untap step. Investigate. I do actually think this card is better than I thought it was. I think that, like Confront the Unknown, it is actually good in that deck.
Yeah, there's obviously only certain decks that want this.
The blue white Flyers deck probably also would like it.
Yeah, and I think the blue red spell deck also is not unhappy to have this either. So it's definitely a card you can play, but I think it has to be in the right kind of deck. It has to be doing the right kind of thing. So
the next card is one that has just been one of my favorite cards in the set. I'm not sure why, because I'm not that big fan of these. I mean, they're good, but this one's been pretty good. And that's Rancid Rats. It's 1 in a black for a 1/1 zombie rat. It's got Skulk. It's got Death Touch. I'm moving this to the front of the pack over all these. I actually think this card is great.
yeah, this is definitely, I think, one of Black's better creatures for certain. It's just able to trade with anything. And like I said previously, Death Touch Rats are pretty much always going to be good. They do just flat out trade with like anything they brawl with, so that's always a good thing. And I don't think there's many first strikers in the set.
Yeah, there's not. Another interesting thing about this one, and we kind of touched on it last time with Rancid Rats, but the thing is you don't give them the option to block when you attack with this Rancid Rats, and sometimes they could decide that it's worth it to block your 1-drop rats, right? And they don't get that option with this one, and that's worth the extra mana. That you get to attack freely when you don't have anything you want to block. I think that's important.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So, Vampire Noble is next. I'm not taking this early. That's just the 3/2 for 3. Rush of Adrenaline is 1 red for an instant. Target creature gets +2/+1, gains trample until end of turn. I'm not ready to take this card this highly.
No, I'm not either.
I'm not even ready to take this card like third pick. I could see a world where this is the kind of thing that you want in a specific deck, and if you are like forcing that deck, you could get it 4th and 5th and be really happy. But that's kind of it. Because I've had some of the 1-drop white ones, like God's Willing. Like, I would take that third pick, right? But that's different.
Yeah, God's Willing also just blanks removal spells.
Right.
Whereas Rush of Adrenaline generally doesn't do that. Generally, Rush of Adrenaline is either a game ender or something that's letting your 3/3 win in combat versus their 3/3. So, yeah, definitely nowhere near on the same power level as God's Willing. God's Willing is just so much more flexible in terms of its what it's able to do.
And in the context of that set, right? Like, it was...
Yeah.
It was amazing. Emissary of the Sleepless is next. It's 4 and a white for a 2/4. It has flying. See, these are stats that I'm okay with for 5 mana. That extra toughness, 2/4 can tussle with basically anything anyway. So I'm okay with those stats. And then when it enters the battlefield, if a creature died this turn, put another 1/1 into play. That's a spirit with flying.
Yeah. This is, again, it's a reasonable creature, but it's not a card I'm looking to really take high.
Yeah. What I'm saying is I like this better than Storm Rider Spirit.
Okay. Yeah, I can see that. And in white decks too, a lot of times you're basically just attacking, so you're hoping that they're trading, and you can maybe get the extra 1/1 out of it.
Yeah, because this thing will stop a 3/3 and then put you on the offensive in the air, and I've been impressed with this card. Moonland Drifter is 1 white and 1 for a creature spirit. It's got Delirium. When it has Delirium, it has Flying.
This is a pretty decent Grizzly Bear.
This card's great.
Yeah, I mean, one thing that's really nice about Grizzly Bears, and I think this is something that we've been seeing more in limited sets recently, is that Grizzly Bears are obviously great when you cast them on turn 2, but then you kind of want them to be able to do something later in the game as well, and Moorland Drifter is a card that does that, so.
Yeah, card is great. Still not taking it over Rancid Rats, though.
Nope, and I wouldn't take it over Reduced to Ashes either, so.
Yeah, that's true. I don't know that I would either. That's a good point. Graph Mole is next. It's 2 and a green for a 2/4. Whenever you sacrifice a clue, gain 3 life. This card is actually really, really good.
Yeah, I wonder how much of this is a kind of signal saying, hey, maybe you should pick this up and maybe try to work your way into a clue deck, because I definitely think Graph Mole is one of the linchpins for that archetype. It's very hard for people to kill you if a Graph Mole is sitting around.
I've been impressed with it even out of that deck. Like, 2/4 for 3, like, that's stats. Like, that's a good body. And, like, it's not that hard to get 2 clues out of this card anyway, even in those non-decks. So, like, I don't know. This card's really impressed me, but I think that in those clue decks, like, it is even better.
Yeah, I mean, it seems pretty nuts. I haven't actually played with it or played versus the straight up blue-green clue deck. I've played versus some of the blue control decks, which incidentally have a lot of clues in them. But I could definitely see, like I said, if this is just sitting around and your opponent doesn't kill it, like, I don't see them realistically killing you ever. So.
Cult of the Waxing Moon is next. It's 4 and a green for a 5/4. Whenever a permanent you control transforms into a human creature, into a non-human creature, sorry, put a 2/2 wolf token onto the battlefield. I've not played against or with this card yet.
I think I've only talked to one person that's played with it, and they said it was just a Spine Worm. It was basically just a 5/4 for 5.
Okay.
They were like, I wasn't unhappy playing it because obviously the stats are fine on their own, but he's like, I never got any wolves out of it, so.
Next up we have Veteran Cathar. It's 1 green and 1 for a 2/2 human soldier that you can pay 3 and a white, and a target human gains double strike. I think that the choices here are between Rancid Rat, Graph Mole, and Reduced to Ashes, and I think that I would take Rancid Rat or Graph Mole over Reduced to Ashes. I think I would take Graph Mole.
You wouldn't consider Veteran Cathar at all? I hear that's kind of a
I think that card. I heard that card is great, like, and I played against it, but I like those 2 cards much more.
Yeah, for me, I think it's either Graph Mole or Veteran Cathar.
Oh, okay.
I think I would take Graph Mole here.
Yeah, I think that I also would take Graph Mole. That card, I've yet to play with it. I have played against it, and I was like, well, this card's unbeatable. So I definitely think that it's pretty high up there on my list. So we're gonna take Graph Mole there.
Yeah.
All right. So for pick 3, we are gonna go a little bit faster. We have Guess If Aristocrats 4 and a red for a 5/4. So it's a Spine Worm on the front, and then it flips into the 6/5. We're not going to take this flip card this early. This card is fine, though. People keep, like, talking down on this card, but, like, aren't those stats just fine anyway? Like,
yeah, this is a 5-drop I'd be happy playing in my red decks. Certainly I'm not, like you said, I'm not looking to take him really early, but to fill out the top of my curve, I'm pretty happy with it.
What about Insolent Neonate?
It's funny because, like, to me, I still just look at this card and I'm like, is this card good? And
apparently it's great.
Yeah, I guess it is good enough to justify actually considering taking. I wouldn't take it third, especially because we don't have any Madness cards either.
Right.
But in the dedicated Madness deck, I can see why this would be a good card. I guess the other advantage with this card too is a lot of the Madness outlets do have a quote-unquote mana cost associated with them. So, like, you know, if you're tormenting boys in Madnessing, you have to spend 2 mana on the tormenting boys plus whatever the madness cost is, whereas you can just have this guy in play and just activate him and pay just the flat madness cost for it.
Sure. Yeah, I also don't think I'm taking it here, but I think the card is better than I thought it was. What about Super Healing Salve? Chieftain's Blessing.
Funnily enough, playable and constructed in Hearthstone, not in Magic.
Is that even true?
It is. There's literally a card called Flash Heal, I believe is the name of the card. It's 1 mana, and it says...
But it also heals guys.
Yeah, it heals guys. It also has synergy with Akanai Soul Priest. We're talking about Hearthstone now, but so it's definitely a little more flexible than
if it was 1 mana 5 to your hero, I don't know that would be playable.
Yeah, probably not, but but I always like to point it up. I'm like, unplayable chaff in Magic, playable and constructed in Hearthstone.
Alright. Clipped Wings is next. We're not taking that either. Sleep Paralysis, though. That's 3 and a blue for an enchantment. Enchanted creature, you tap, when it enters the battlefield, you tap it, and then it stays tapped. This card's good.
Yep, I would shuffle this to the front of the pack.
Vampire Noble we're not taking here. Stallion of Ashmouth, I have been impressed with. I was more impressed with it than the people seem to be at the Pro Tour. I know some people were really high on cards like this, and then others said, this card's fine, like you'll play it, but I thought it was pretty good. I would not take it over Sleep Paralysis, though.
Yeah, my experience is it's just generally a hill giant that sometimes gets delirium, but yeah, I still want Sleep Paralysis here.
Watcher of the Web is 4 and a green for a 2/5 spider. In my experience, this card is unbeatable.
Yeah, pretty much.
It can block up to 7 additional creatures. This card is great. I would move this up, actually. I think this card is way, way better than I thought it was.
Yeah, you can't ever attack through it, and then you also just can't ever Alpha Strike with it in play either, right?
Right.
So
I would move that close to the front. Press for Answers again. I don't think we're taking that here either. Then we have Hulking Devil. I don't want Cobble Brute in my deck. Basically ever. I would never play a Cobble Brute.
I actually sided it in when I was playing versus Aaron, and he was playing a mono blue deck. The reason being is because he had a million X5s in his deck, and I had a bunch of 4-power creatures. So he had a bunch of Lamplighter of Selhoffs, and he also had the 1/5 flyers, and this guy actually gets to attack through the 1/5 flyers and a bunch of 1/3s. So I have actually actively sided this guy in before. So
go you for thinking outside the box. Dance with the Devils is next. It's 4 and a red for an instant. It puts 2 1/1 red devil creatures into play. With when they die, they deal 1 damage to target creature and player. This card's been great.
Yeah. I also think it's still a pretty good red uncommon. Interestingly though, I saw, LSV had a choice between this and, Blood Mad Vampire? And he chose Blood Mad Vampire actively over Dance with Devils. So, maybe their experience is that Dance with the Devils is not as good as
Which is interesting, because it did work on coverage.
Yeah, I saw Reed got semi-blown out by it one game.
So I actually don't think that I would... Are you on Sleep Paralysis, or are you on Watcher of the Web at this point?
Probably Sleep Paralysis over Watcher.
Okay. I think it's close for me.
Yeah, and
I've never played with Watcher, though, so I don't know how it feels to play with it. I just know that I've played against it and been like, I can't do anything.
Yeah, and the other thing is I don't know how much of a signal Dance with the Devils is. Is that a signal that there's a possibility red is open? Is it not a signal that red's open? So I actually think this is kind of close. Probably Sleep Paralysis. That feels like the safer pick to me. Also, the fact that if I have Graph Mole and I want to be in blue-green, then Sleep Paralysis is... Well,
I have a card that's going to change your mind. Our last card is Tooth Collector.
Okay. Yeah, so
Tooth Collector is 3. It's black. It's a black and 2 for a 3/2 that when it enters the battlefield, it gives something -1/-1. And then if you have Delirium, it gives -1/-1 to something every. Crap! I just shut this.
it's at the beginning of your opponent's
Your opponent's upkeep, right? Yeah.
Yep.
So I would take Tooth Collector. I think that card's great.
Yeah, I think Tooth Collector is great. Sometimes it's just a flat out removal spell, kill your 2/1, and then sometimes you attack with a creature and they block and your creatures bounce, and then this comes down post combat and finishes the creature off. That happens too. So yeah, I agree. Tooth Collector is a pretty good black card.
Yep. All right. Well, let's start to my favorite archetype. Black-green is still my favorite archetype. I know that a lot of people like green-white, a lot of people like green-blue, a lot of people like green-X, green-X, green-X. But green-black is still my favorite. Let's go on to our biggest movers. And mine, so every week on the show we talk about the cards that went up or down the most for us, and mine went up by a lot. Mostly just from a few things. One of them was a draft I did where I guess LR came out, and I did not listen to it before everybody else, and people started drafting a lot of Thraben Inspectors, and playing their Thraben Inspectors because of LR, and that card is better than I thought it was.
Yeah, me too. I think part of the thing that I was thinking is I was like, would I really spend 3 mana on a 1/2 that draws me a card? Like, it's fine, but it's not great. But that's not really how the card plays. The cost is broken up.
Right.
Right, between, the casting of the creature and then the actual cracking of the clue. So, yeah, the fact that you can play a 1-drop that does not lose you a card later in the game, I think is pretty good. It's kind of one of those the parts are more or the whole is more than the sum of the parts.
Yeah, I think that it's the split cost. It's like an investment, and the 1/2 body is weirdly good in this set. Like, we kind of talked about it a little bit with, like, I think that I mentioned Loam Dryad, and how I thought that card was playable on the last cast. And this kind of serves that same role, where it's this body that gets around Skulk things. It weirdly trades with some early drops. That 2/1 red vampire, or is it a vampire, or is it, I think it might be a wizard, that when it's blocked it deals 1 damage.
It's a werewolf, right?
Yeah.
Transforms.
Oh, yeah, because it transforms. That's right.
Yep.
And I had that, and I was just like looking at this 1/2. I'm like, this is so stupid. And that was kind of the experience that I had against Lone Dryad before, and so that's kind of what moved it up for me. It went from being a card that I thought I would never play to, this card is great. Like, I don't know that it's great still. I don't know that I'd still call it great. I moved up because I lost to it, and I think that their deck was good, but I still don't know, like, where it lies, where I'm supposed to pick it. Like, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely am still not taking it over most good white commons, right? No way I'm ever taking it over an Angelic Purge. No way I'm taking it over like a Dauntless Cathar.
Sure.
Anything like that. But definitely as a,
but it moved to playable.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think it's a very playable card. It's a card I'm probably happy to see in my deck. Yeah, so it's a card that I'm, hoping to pick up, at some point in the draft. But yeah, I'm still not taking it over any of the really strong commons. And depending on where my deck's at, I may still want to take maybe like a semi, quote unquote, curve filling mediocre creature over it still. But definitely I do think that, it's a card that if it's in probably my pile of cards, it will probably always be in my white deck. So.
Awesome. Let's move on to this is going to be a shorter podcast, but we're going to move on to Our training rounds this week is just going to be what we thought from the PT and what we learned. So we're going to just ask a couple of questions, and then we'll both answer them. Aggro versus non-aggro, Drew. What do you think in this format?
I think, to me, I don't know if it's as much of a question as like aggressive versus control decks or combo decks. I don't know if those are like combo decks, but
no, some people are asking, is aggro even playable?
Yeah, I think it is. I think you have to kind of get paid off to be in the right deck. It definitely sounded like people were still happily drafting black-red vampires. I mean, do you consider that an aggressive deck? I would.
I do.
Yeah.
I think that it still has a lot of synergies, and that the deck gets a lot better with that red uncommon that we talked about during our uncommon set review, the one that I was pretty high on. Crap. The set's too new. I don't have card names memorized yet. Doesn't it have Madness?
I'm trying to think which. I'm assuming it's on Incorrigible Youths.
No, not Incorrigible Youths. The enchantment.
Oh, Sensia Masquerade?
Yes. So I think that the decks get significantly better with that and Incorrigible Youths.
Yeah, certainly. Sensia Masquerade in the right deck is very, very, very powerful. Blocking is a nightmare for your opponent. Not blocking it is a nightmare for your opponent, which is exactly what you want in an aggressive deck. And the first black-red Madness deck I drafted, I didn't have any of those in, but I still felt like it was a very powerful deck. So I definitely think that there are aggressive decks that are very powerful in this set. Again, they are going to be synergistic. You probably just can't have a pile of 2-drops and 3-drops and some removal spells and hope to maybe power through some of the stronger control decks. But I definitely don't think aggressive decks are dead. I don't think that's the case.
I think that this format is beautiful because I think that you can draft both aggressive, control, mid-range, and these sweet decks. Like, I think that a lot of the experience that people are having where they're like, this isn't good, this isn't good, this is better, is really it's because there's so much you can do in this draft format that it's a thing of preference. Like, what do you prefer to do? Because you can win doing it.
Yeah, and one other thing this set is really reminding me of is the old Innistrad, in the sense that in the original Innistrad draft, basically almost every card was playable in some way. And I think I'm getting the feeling that that's the case for this set as well. That almost any card, even cards you maybe think aren't necessarily good, are actually better than they look. For example, like Stoic Builder was a card that was kind of dismissed, I think, early on. Just like, oh, it's just like a 2/3. It just kind of fills your curve or whatever. And it's slowly turning into kind of one of those really, really nice cards to have in the appropriate deck, in like a Delirium deck. So I definitely think this is a set where you, knowing what the commons are doing and having them in the right deck gives you a real big edge, I think, over your opponents.
What do you think the best color is?
I
think it's green. I think it's green by a lot.
Yeah, I do think green is quite good.
I did not. I would have said black a week ago.
Yeah, I'm thinking red, but I don't know. Green definitely I think is strong, and I know green has some of the really good uncommons. Red has some really good uncommons too, though. So, yeah, I think it's either red or green for me.
I think that green, it's funny. We talked about the 2-mana 0/4 last week, the Scavenger, and how we both thought that card was good, and we were getting them pretty late. I'm pretty sure that, and that's just kind of the starting point for me that I realized, how good green was, oh, this card's great, I'm getting it super late. I've played with, Autumn Gloom or Autumnal. I don't know how to say that card's name, but the 3-mana enchantment that you mill yourself, and when you have Delirium, you get a 4/4 hexproof guy. That card's been really, really good. I've played with some of the green rares. Actually, I haven't gotten to play a ton with. Like, I haven't gotten to play with most of them outside of. So I've played with Silver Fur Paladin quite a bit, but I played against Soul Swallower the other day. That card was great. The Green Vessel, which I thought was going to be bad, actually turns out to be like one of the better cards in the set, and like you can get that really late. Quilled Wolf might be the best 2-drop in the entire set at common. I played against and with Obsessive Skinner, the green uncommon that's a 1/1 that you can put a 1/1 counter on a creature when it enters the battlefield in the beginning of each upkeep. You put I think it's a counter on target creature. It might be just a counter on it. But,
no, it's target creature.
Yeah, that card also is great. Everything went up in that color for me.
Yeah, I mean, green, I think, I could definitely see green. It has, like, the best removal spell, probably, right?
Do you think Rabid Bite is the best?
It's either Rabbit Bite or Fiery Temper, right?
I don't know. I'm still impressed with Sinister Concoction the most.
Sure, but that's an uncommon, right?
Oh, sure.
Yeah, because otherwise...
This is 2 times at this problem.
Because otherwise, if you want to bring uncommons into it, I would argue that Lightning Axe is probably the best.
Do you think that both of those are better than Murderous Compulsion?
That both Rabbit Bite and Fiery Temper are?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
Interesting.
I mean, I think Murderous Compulsion is very good, but again, like I said, even in this set, even though I was playing every Murderous Compulsion I ever had,
you're going to, right?
I was like, yeah, but there was still games where I'm like, oh, I can't use this, and most of the time it involved when my opponent played Always Watching, and I was like, oh.
Wow, that's a rare.
I'm like, I'm getting my face smashed in, and I can't kill any of you guys. This is great.
Okay, so that's our thoughts on best color. What do you think versus synergy decks versus non-synergy decks?
I definitely think you need to be trying to have a synergy deck.
I agree. I've seen Call of the Bloodline decks that were like the sweetest thing I've ever seen, where they're like, discard this Madness guy, put a 1/1 lifelink into play the Madness card, and I'm like, what is happening? I've seen... I've played Black Green Delirium more times than I could count. Like, that's my favorite deck by a lot. I've seen Rise from the Tides decks. I've seen the blue red spells deck. I've seen, this set is so sweet. Like, so sweet. Why would you ever choose not to do something sweet?
Yeah, this set is absolutely, awesome. It's got a ton of things going on in it. And you can definitely get, I think, rewarded for, figuring out a good strategy to have for your deck.
All right, I have more questions that I need to add to this but what do you think of Shard of Broken Glass?
I'm still kind of low on it, I think.
There were, according to Randy, I think it was Randy that said it, he talked to some pros, and some said it's the only thing that makes Delirium playable, others said it's not playable.
Yeah, and maybe I'm more towards the non-playable side of things, mostly because I feel like once you have Delirium with the card, I don't feel like it's doing anything.
But right? Here's my thought, is I don't think it's actually that hard to get Delirium.
Right.
And so for that reason, I don't like it. But
yeah.
I have played it as, I had a deck that had triple of the 3-drop that got +1/+0 for each equipment you had.
Mm-hmm.
And I played it in that deck because it made my 3rd equipment, and it was fine. White actually has some pretty good interactions with your graveyard in the set, so I found that it was better. There's cards with Delirium, there's things that you can do with your when they're in your graveyard. So I definitely have played the card and been okay with it, but I think that it takes a specific set of circumstances for Shard of Broken Glass.
Yeah, Yeah, I agree with the Delirium thing because I do think it's easier to get Delirium. And if you're a quote unquote dedicated Delirium deck, you're probably playing other cards that will enable your Delirium anyways. And like I said, once you have Delirium, I just feel like the card isn't doing anything. Whereas the other cards, once you have Delirium, are probably doing something. Like Autumnal Gloom, you mentioned earlier, I think is a great example of a card like that, right? You play it early, you quickly fill up your graveyard, and then boom, you have a 4/4 hexproof creature.
Right. Which is a lot more of a thing than equipment that you can move around that gives your guy +1/+0.
Yeah.
What did you think of the other equipment? Things like Skeleton Key or True Faith Sensor?
Yeah. I think Sensor. I think Sensor is decent. Again, it gives you a reasonable amount of stats. I don't think it's like super great. I'm usually probably not looking to pick it up super early. Maybe I prioritize it a little bit higher if I do have an Abyssinian Missionaries in my deck. What are the other equipment? I still don't know how I feel about Slayer's Plate. It gives a lot of stats.
I actually think that you should never cut that card.
Okay. It is really expensive though for what it does. I just have nightmares of like playing it, equipping it to a guy,
Didn't Travis sideboard it in every single game in his sealed deck at the GP?
Probably. It could be that sometimes you don't. Sometimes you have a card you don't want game one, right? Like because like I said, I was gonna say I just have nightmares of putting it on a creature and then all of a sudden that creature just gets hit by a Just the Wind, and I'm just like, oh, So I mean, when it is good, it's great. But I can definitely see situations where I'm just like, I just don't want to invest 1 million mana and then, have my card get stuck in my hand or whatever, or sleep paralysis or whatever it is. So
sure. I mean, I can definitely see that. It's hard to like for me to think that this card isn't that Slayer's Plate isn't great because like it's. I don't know, it just does so much.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I said, I definitely think it's.
I thought that it would be not great because, I mean, I don't want to pay 3 mana to get blown out.
Yeah,
that's like a whole turn.
Yeah, I mean, when you don't get blown out, it's pretty decent. I think even if your guy doesn't get bounced, though, sometimes it can be kind of awkward because like. Like let's say your guy doesn't have trample and they're able just to maneuver the game to a situation where the 3 mana is proving too taxing for whatever reason, and they're able just to like out-tempo you without even playing a bounce spell. But I mean, it's still obviously like a pretty strong equipment. So I mean, I'm not saying like it's a bad card. I'm just saying I think because it's so expensive. The card I do like is the Transform card. What's the name of that one?
The Harvest Hand?
No, the 1 mana equipment that when the equipped creature transforms.
Oh yeah, that card's sick blowouts.
Yeah, I actually think that card's really good because it is so cheap, right? Like
Neglected
it's 1 to play, 1 to equip. I mean, +1/+1 isn't great on an equipment, but it's fine. And then, the ability for it to just, like, transform into this monstrous card and take over the game, I think is really powerful. The fact that the mana cost is so low is kind of what's really appealing to me about it.
Yeah, I've been blown out by that card. Like, if they play that into Air Falcon Wrath, you lose. I mean, that's just something that happens. I'm like, oh my gosh. And it's just this 6/5 in the air that's attacking you on turn 3, and you're like, all right, well, that was a fun game of Magic.
Yeah.
What's your overall feeling? Like, how long is it going to take for you to get sick of this format, Drew?
I probably won't ever get sick of it. I don't think.
It's pretty great.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome. I mean, the fact that there's so many different things to explore, I think is what's so cool about it. there will probably, I will not be surprised if by the end of the format there are decks I have not drafted yet.
That's what I was just thinking. I'm like, am I gonna get to draft everything?
Yeah, and I can actively see me just saying to myself,
I might go buy 2 boxes of this.
No.
Just to
put in your closet.
Yeah. It's pretty great. Do you remember you know how expensive Innistrad is now?
I'm sure it's quite a bit, considering that some of the rares in there are pretty highly sought after.
Yeah, I think that has a lot to do with it, but I think that the reason that but imagine how much of it has actually been opened too. There's going to be people that just draft and draft and draft that set forever, and I think this might be one that I might want to keep around. I don't know if it'll have long-term implications, in Eternal formats. I don't think it will, like that set did, but I think that it's really fun.
Yeah, I definitely don't. I can't think of any standout rares. In the same way that Snapcaster Mage was really a big standout rare when the set came out.
Maybe Thing in the Ice we'll see play outside of Standard a little bit or something, but
yeah, I don't see that card being anywhere near as much of a chase card as Snapcaster, but I do agree in terms of being a sweet draft format. Absolutely, I think it's a ton of fun, and yeah, if you came up to me a year or two after the set, a year or two from now and said, hey, do you want to draft Shadows of Innistrad? Try to be like, I'm in.
Yeah, where's 6 other people?
Yep.
Or better yet, where's 4 other people? Let's team draft this thing.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. So, that's it for this week. People, where can people find you?
I'm on Twitter at MTGDrew. And I am also at Facebook, Andrew Walden. So you can either add me there or follow me on Twitter.
And where can people read your articles?
Oh, yeah. So I do write articles for playatgamegood.com. They're not always limited. My articles tend to be a little bit more, I guess, broad than limited when I write there. So, but yeah, you can definitely go there, and I do write there.
Cool. You can find me on Facebook at Spencer Stephen Howland. You can find me on Twitter at Spencer13H. Don't forget that you can join the Constructed Criticism Facebook group where we talk about limited, constructed, and all things that'll make you better at Magic. And don't forget to like us on Facebook, limited time only, and follow us on Twitter at LTOMTG. Drew, do you have any shout-outs this week?
Yeah. I'm going to give a shout-out to Joe Sumner. Just a long-time good friend. Also, he's actually been working kind of behind the scenes to really promote tournaments, not just for Magic, but also for other games as well. Honestly, Joe, if anybody knows Joe, to me, he's just kind of like a big kid at heart. He loves to have fun, he loves to play games, and he loves to see people happy. So, shout out to Joe.
Yeah, Joe is great. I completely agree. Shout out to my wife. I have an awesome wife that I don't always give enough credit to in the world, and I think she's amazing. So, thank you everyone for listening this week. We'll see you guys all next time.
Yep, see you guys later.